Alright, so picture this. It's a quiet April morning in Kerry, seagulls screaming like they own the place, waves rolling in, just another day in small town Ireland. And then somebody spots a bag. A normal, boring plastic bag half buried in the sand. You'd expect seaweed or maybe a soggy sandwich, right? Nope. Inside that bag is a newborn baby. Not breathing, not sleeping, gone. He's got 28 stab wounds and a broken neck. 28. And suddenly, that peaceful little beach turns into Ireland's worst nightmare. This is White Strand Beach near Caherciveen, County Kerry. The date, April 14th, 1984. And that day would blow the lid off a scandal that mixed tragedy, shame, police blunders, and one of the biggest apologies the Irish state ever had to make. People would later call the baby Baby John, 5 days old, abandoned in death. And for nearly 4 decades, everyone, cops, priests, tabloids, politicians, had an opinion, but almost nobody had the truth. Boom, that's how the Kerry babies scandal began. A story so twisted that even 40 years later, Ireland still whispers about it. Alright, so let's meet the people in this bizarre Irish tragedy, because trust me, this story's got everything. Small town, scandal, gossip, and a police investigation that aged like warm milk. First up, Joanne Hayes. She's a young woman from Aberdeen, County Kerry. Works hard, lives quiet, keeps to herself. But in 1984 Ireland, being unmarried and pregnant, yeah, that was basically a crime in itself. Small towns talk, priests whisper, and suddenly everyone's a moral expert. Joanne wasn't some outlaw, she was just a woman trying to survive in a place that loved its secrets more than its compassion. And when this case breaks out, she becomes the name on everyone's lips for all the wrong reasons. Then we've got baby John, the little boy found on that beach. He never had a voice, never had a chance, and for decades nobody even knew his name. The country just called him the Kerry baby. Imagine being defined by your tragedy, not your life. That's Ireland for you back then. Silence first, empathy later. Now enter the Guards, Ireland's police force. They show up at White Strand Beach with a big, "we'll get this solved by tea time" energy. But here's the thing: when you mix pressure, small town politics, and the Catholic guilt of the 1980s, let's just say detective work wasn't always by the book. And then there's the community. Rural Kerry back then wasn't just religious, it was practically ruled by it. Everybody knew everybody and everybody knew something. Being pregnant and unmarried could turn you into a scandal overnight. And this scandal, it spread faster than pub gossip on a Friday night. So here's our cast. A young woman's society already judged. A baby who never got to grow up. A police force chasing headlines instead of clues. And a community built on silence. What could possibly go wrong? So here's how this whole nightmare kicks off. It's April 14th, 1984. Caherciveen, County Kerry, a quiet coastal town where the biggest drama is usually a tractor blocking traffic or a sheep wandering into someone's garden. And then out of nowhere, this peaceful little place gets hit with something straight out of a horror film. A newborn baby is found washed up on White Strand Beach. He's wrapped in a plastic bag. He's got stab wounds, 28 of them, and a broken neck. That's not a mystery, that's rage. News spreads like wildfire. The papers jump on it. Locals can't believe it. And the guards, they rush in like, "All right lads, this one's ours." Now, back then, Ireland wasn't exactly modern. People didn't talk about pregnancy, especially outside marriage. But the Guards here whispers that a woman up in Aberdeen, a bit north of Caherciveen, was pregnant recently, and now, no baby. Her name? Joanne Hayes. And in that moment, every head in the station turns. Wait, she had a baby? Where is it now? Boom. Case closed in their minds. They drive to her house, ask a few polite questions, which in 1980s Garda language basically means interrogation with extra guilt. Then they start questioning her family. And soon, what starts as a missing baby inquiry turns into a full-blown murder investigation. Statements are taken. Hours go by. Then, out of nowhere, they say Joanne confessed that she gave birth, that the baby died, that she panicked. But hold on, it doesn't add up. The story shifts, details blur. It's like the whole thing was written by 5 people who never met each other. Something feels off. You can almost sense it, like the truth's trying to surface, but someone keeps shoving it back under. The beach has one dead baby. The farm has one missing baby. And Ireland? It's about to explode with questions no one wants to answer. Alright, so buckle up, because this is where the story goes from tragic to straight up bizarre. The guards think they've cracked it. They've got Joanne Hayes, the young unmarried woman who everyone's already side-eyeing for being pregnant. They sit her down, ask questions for hours, and eventually they say she confesses. She supposedly admits to killing the baby. The case solved, right? Except no. Because not long after, Joanne and her family say, hold on, that's not what happened. They claim she did give birth, yes, but it wasn't to the baby found on the beach. Her baby was born on the family farm. He died shortly after birth, either stillborn or only lived for moments. They say they buried him quietly on the land, terrified of the shame. So now there are 2 babies, one on the farm, one on the beach. And suddenly, the guards' big case closed moment turns into, wait, what? And instead of backing off, the guards double down. They come up with this wild theory, like something out of a soap opera written during a fever dream. They call it heteropaternal superfecundation. Yeah, try saying that twice without sounding like you're casting a spell. It basically means one woman gets pregnant with twins by 2 different men. So according to them, Joanne gave birth to 2 babies, one fathered by her boyfriend, one by someone else. One buried at home, one murdered and dumped at sea. You can't even make this stuff up. The press goes wild. It's on every front page. Talk shows can't stop dissecting it. And poor Joanne, she's trapped. The whole country's whispering about her sex life like it's a national security issue. But then here comes the science. Blood tests. Baby John, the baby found on the beach, has blood group A. Joanne and her partner, blood group O. That means biologically he can't be their child. Boom. Their entire theory collapses like a house of cards in an Irish storm. And suddenly it's not Joanne's story that looks suspicious. It's the investigation itself. So now the case is crumbling, and instead of saying, hey, maybe we got this wrong, the guards decide to dig in deeper. Classic move. They've got a media circus outside, a confused nation watching, and suddenly everyone's pride is on the line. Joanne starts talking publicly. She says the questioning was brutal, that she was broken down, intimidated, even slapped. That her so-called confession was basically forced out of exhaustion and fear. Imagine being a terrified woman in 1984 Ireland alone in a room full of male detectives who already think you're guilty. That's not an interview, that's an ambush. The public starts whispering, maybe the guards went too far. Maybe this wasn't a murder solved, but a witch hunt with paperwork. By now, journalists smell blood, and not the forensic kind. Reports start showing cracks in the investigation, timelines that don't add up, evidence that doesn't fit, and theories that sound like something you'd hear from your drunk uncle at 2 in the morning. So the government steps in. They launch a full tribunal officially called the Kerry Babies Tribunal, led by Judge Kevin Lynch, October 1985. The whole thing is supposed to bring clarity. Instead, it becomes a national spectacle. The hearings drag on for weeks. Joanne has to testify in front of the entire country. Her private life, her body, her relationships, everything is dissected publicly. Ireland watches like it's courtroom theater, but it's really a woman being humiliated in real time. And then the tribunal's final report drops. Big surprise, they clear the guards of major wrongdoing. No one gets punished. And somehow they manage to blame Joanne again. They claim she did kill her farm baby and imply she might have had something to do with baby John too. You read that right. After all the evidence proving the beach baby wasn't hers, they still suggest she's not totally innocent. It's like the system just couldn't handle being wrong, so it rewrote the ending. And in the end, no one is charged for baby John's murder. Not a single person. The file stays open, but the truth stays buried just like both babies. Joanne walks away with her name tarnished, her family broken, and her trust in justice completely destroyed. And Ireland pretends it's moving on. Fast forward a few decades. Ireland's changed a bit, new laws, new attitudes, better science. But the Kerry babies case? Still sitting there like a ghost nobody wants to talk about. Then, boom, January 2018. The Gards reopened the case. They've got new DNA tech. And this time, the evidence actually speaks louder than the theories. And guess what? It proves once and for all Joanne Hayes was not the mother of baby John. Not even close. Her baby was her own. The beach baby was someone else's entirely. After 30 plus years of being the villain in everyone's story, she's finally cleared. The Irish state publicly apologizes to her. Straight up says, "We were wrong, we failed you, we humiliated you." She gets vindicated but not victory. Because how do you celebrate being proven innocent when the whole country already saw you as guilty for half your life? It's like being handed a clean slate after the world already used it as a dartboard. But hold on, that's not the end. Because in March 2023, out of nowhere, the case explodes again. A man in his 60s and a woman in her 50s are suddenly arrested in connection with baby John's murder, nearly 40 years later. Cold case, more like Lazarus. People are stunned. Ireland's like, wait, what? We're still doing this? And yet, yeah, justice might finally be catching up. No names released publicly, no convictions yet, but at least someone's finally being asked the right questions. And that's when the emotional weight hits hard. Because for all those decades, the wrong person carried the shame, while the real truth, the real killer slipped quietly through history. So yeah, the state said sorry. But that apology came 30 years late. And the silence of that little baby on the beach, it still echoes louder than any statement they could ever issue. Alright, let's just call this what it is. The Kerry baby's case wasn't just a murder investigation gone wrong. It was a mirror, a big ugly mirror showing how Ireland treated women back then. Joanne Hayes wasn't the villain. She was the perfect scapegoat. Young, unmarried, pregnant, basically the holy trinity of someone to blame in 1984 rural Ireland. Because let's be real, this wasn't about solving a crime. It was about saving face. The Guards, they were under pressure. A dead baby on a beach, that's national outrage territory. They needed anyone to make it look like justice was working. So they found a woman who couldn't fight back. And boom, job done. But here's the part that still gets under my skin. Ireland believed it. The newspapers, the priests, the neighbors, they all pointed fingers. Not because they had evidence, because they had bias. Because it was easier to believe a woman sinned than to admit the system failed. And even when science stepped in, when the blood types didn't match, when the story started to crumble, people still didn't want to let it go. Because once society labels you, good luck peeling that sticker off. This whole case is like a time capsule of institutional arrogance. The police messed up, the tribunal doubled down, and the public stayed quiet. That's the trifecta of injustice right there. What really kills me is that Joanne had to live decades under that shadow. She lost her privacy, her peace, her reputation, all because powerful men couldn't admit they were wrong. And when the apology finally came, it was polite, clean, bureaucratic. Like, oops, our bad. As if that fixes the trauma. So yeah, the Kerry baby's story isn't just about a baby who was murdered. It's about a country that murdered truth slowly, quietly, with a smile. Here's the part that gets me every single time. That baby John was barely 5 days old. He never got to open his eyes to the world, never got to be held or loved or even named properly until decades later. 28 stab wounds, a broken neck, left in a bag on a beach. And somehow, after all the investigations, all the tribunals, all the courtroom drama, no one has ever been convicted for his death. Not one person. Joanne Hayes, the woman they called the monster, turned out to be innocent. Completely. But she spent half her life living like she wasn't. Her name became a headline, a scandal, a symbol of everything Ireland didn't want to admit about itself. The state apologized. The church stayed quiet. The people moved on. And baby John, he stayed right where they found him in memory, not justice. That's the haunting twist. Because sometimes the real crime isn't what happened on the beach. It's what the country chose to believe. And here's the thing no one likes to say out loud. Maybe the real killer got to live a normal life. Maybe they watched all this unfold from their sitting room, coffee in hand, knowing someone else was paying for what they did. 40 years later, we still don't know who ended baby John's life. But we do know who let the truth drown. Everyone. The police, the system, the silence. So yeah, the Kerry baby's case wasn't just about a baby. It was about an Ireland that didn't want to look at itself. And even today, when the waves hit White Strand Beach, you can almost imagine that soft echo, a whisper in the tide saying, "Tell my story right this time."